She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes in and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical.
I think a lot of people trusted Chad Daybell, and it makes me wonder who I should trust.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. If you're new to this channel and you end up liking what you see, please hit subscribe. If you think you're already subscribed to the channel, just double check, because some people have been unsubscribed lately, and I've been getting messages saying that they've been unsubscribed when they haven't unsubscribed, so just check and make sure you still are, so you get notified every time I post a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you're not already. I'm more active there daily, talking about what cases I'm looking into and current cases that are ongoing. And let's talk about the video today that I had hoped I would not have to make a video about. I am angry, I am frustrated, and I'm sad. We've been following this case on this channel since pretty much day one. And we've all become incredibly invested in the fates of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. I know I can speak for myself and many of us when I say that despite what we knew to be true in our hearts, we still had hope that they were alive somewhere. Lori and Chad, Melanie and Ian, all of these people were yelling from the rooftop that the kids were okay. But as we've recently found out, considering what my definition of okay is, the kids were not okay at all. On Tuesday, June 9th, police returned to the Idaho property of Chad Daybell and began digging. They recovered 2 sets of human remains that initially had not been identified, but now we have confirmation that they are the remains of 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 17-year-old Tylee Ryan. Chad Daybell was taken into custody and arrested and is now facing some charges. He appeared in court with his new lawyer, John Pryor, the next day, and here's where he was charged with 2 counts of felony destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. And in this case, when they say evidence, they mean human remains. Now, Chad was previously using the same lawyer as Lori, Mark Means, but for this part of the saga, I guess, he's decided to get a different lawyer, and I'll tell you why I think that may be in a little bit. So they're doing this hearing and everything over Zoom. So Chad and his lawyer are together, and then the judge is on his own, and then the prosecutor, Rob Wood's, on his own, and they're all kind of like up on the same screen. And the judge asks if Chad and his lawyer would like a detailed reading of the charges or just a breakdown. And his lawyer tries to say that they don't need either of those things, right? They're just like, skip over everything. You don't need to read the charges. You don't need to go into detail. You don't even need to really talk about that at all. We're just ready to move on to like, you know, bail and talking about that stuff. And the judge is like, okay, like I respect you feel that way, but I'm still going to give you a summary because that's the court procedure. I'm going to show you a clip of that right now.
I can read the criminal complaint in its entirety, or I can summarize it for you.
Judge, we'll waive actually formal reading of the criminal complaint at this time, and I've discussed that matter with Mr. Daybell, and we're ready to proceed forward without either a summary or a formal reading at this point, Your Honor.
All right. The court is going to summarize briefly what the charges are, so that's on the record. And then we'll address the other issues we need to address.
Now, there is a couple reasons, in my opinion, why Chad and his lawyer might want to kind of just graze over the charges. Number one is even though this was a remote trial done via webcam, Chad and his lawyer are still going to know that it's going to be viewable by the general public, which it was. So what Chad's lawyer is thinking is, if we don't go into depth on these charges, it's going to give us the best chance of having a non-tainted jury pool. The second reason, in my opinion, is because they just simply don't want you to know exactly what Chad did or exactly what the specifics are on how those remains were found. However, something that prosecutor Rob Wood slyly slipped in there did not miss me. When they were talking about bail, Wood requested it to be $1 million, which I'm sure we can all agree is warranted considering the circumstances. However, Chad's new lawyer, John Pryor, thought that it was absolutely ridiculous. It was ludicrous to ask for that much for bail, because it's not like the bodies of 2 children being found on your property is that bad, right? I think at one point he was like, there's been tons of other cases where, they tamper with evidence and they don't get a $1 million bail. I mean, yes, that's quite true, John Pryor. However, we're not talking evidence as in human remains in those cases.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state is requesting that bail be set at $1 million. While we recognize that felony concealing of evidence only has a maximum sentence of 5 years per charge, I think the background and context of this case necessitates a higher bail. One of the primary reasons we are asking that bail be set in that amount is that the evidence that has been concealed in this case, it's not simply a document, drugs, a gun. These are human remains. And we can, although those remains have not yet been positively identified, we are aware that those remains are the remains of children, which we believe is an aggravating factor.
In regards to argument, Your Honor, I would point out that the charges are, as Ms. Wood pointed out, carry a maximum of 5 years. Mr. Daybell is not charged with anything more serious. And quite honestly, for the prosecuting attorney to assume that in the future he may or may not do that, and that we should increase the bail with the idea that in the future there may be something else coming down the pipe, is just clearly contrary to what the purpose of bail is. Bail is to assure that Mr. Daybell shows up to court. Bail is to assure that he's not a flight risk, and there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, in his history that indicates that he's going to flee the jurisdiction.
When Rob Wood, the prosecutor, countered this request for a ridiculously low bail, he said that the state of one of the sets of human remains was particularly egregious.
And the manner of the concealment of one of those bodies, which the state finds to be particularly egregious, both an aggravating factor and bears on character, as Rule 40 as Rule 46 allows us to look at.
Additionally, as we know, Chad Daybell does have a habit of hopping on a plane and flying out of town when things start to get sticky for him. So why would we assume that this time, when he's actually facing charges that could and most likely will put him behind bars, why would this time be any different? For each of these charges, Chad faces a penalty of up to 5 years in jail and or a fine of $10,000. And I've heard many people being outraged about this, but there's no need to be. This was just a way to get him into custody, and I have no doubt more charges will soon be coming. The bail did end up being set at $1 million with multiple conditions. Chad would have to wear an ankle monitor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which would be placed on him before he left police custody. He will have to avoid all contact with the victims' families, and he obviously can't travel out of the country. How easy will it be for Chad to make bail, though? Bail bond agents in Idaho typically charge 10% of the bail amount, so that would be $100,000. $100,000 that Chad Daybell would have to come up with to walk free. And if he doesn't have that money just on hand, and let's be honest, who does? I'm pretty sure he spent everything he got from Tammy's life insurance, but I could be wrong. But if he can't get that money on his own, or he can't raise it through friends and family, he would have to get a bail bondsman to put up the money. And just like Lori, he might have trouble finding someone who will do that for him. And that's why I think he doesn't have any money, because Lori's been trying to get bail forever now, and she couldn't get a bail bondsman to work with her because she's a horrible person. So I don't think that Chad walking free on bail is going to be a big concern, but I could be wrong. The world is completely upside down these days, so honestly, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. So after all these months where we all held tight to the hope that Tylee and JJ might still be alive, hidden away somewhere, we now have to face the harsh reality that they are in fact gone. 2 innocent children who did not have dark souls, who were not zombies, who were not working for Satan, are gone from this world forever because of 2 or more selfish monsters. I wish I could have met these 2 beautiful souls. Lori's oldest son, Colby, said that Tylee was feisty with a hilarious, dry sense of humor. She loved Friends and The Office. She was looking forward to starting college and following her dreams. Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing, said that Tylee was a young girl with a strong sense of right and wrong. She didn't hold back her feelings and opinions. She wasn't afraid to speak out for what was right. A friend of Tylee's from her time in Hawaii, Alexia Law, said she grew up like a sister to Tylee and that Lori was almost a second mother to her. She remembered Lori's delicious oatmeal cookies, but she also remembered Lori always talking about the end times. Alexia said, quote, Lori would talk about the end of the world and the second coming all the time. And she would joke about it. She'd be like, let's go off a cliff. The world is going to end. Let's just all die together. Now, of course, Alexia thought that she was joking. Lori was the youth leader at their church, after all. She was this, little suburban mother living in Hawaii, baking oatmeal cookies. Now we know Lori wasn't joking. The only thing that she was joking about was going out all together. Because as you can plainly see, the lady's still walking around alive and well, while her children were in the ground. JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, said that JJ had the biggest heart and the best smile. According to Colby, JJ had become very interested in surgery, and he'd always want to give Colby fake surgeries to practice. He was fearless, open, trusting, and kind. This was a kid who would play with anyone, who would love anyone, who would give anyone he met a chance to change his world for the better. 2 people who could have made a difference, who could have made this planet a better place. They were killed by the very same person who was put there to protect them, who had promised to protect them, and she was helped by her new husband. But is this the end? I don't think so. Not by a long shot. And I know what some of you are going to say. Stephanie, you don't know who killed those kids. Innocent until proven guilty. Typically, I would completely agree with you. I am a very by-the-book kind of girl. However, this has been going on for so long. And I will not discount that Chad and Lori may have been helped by other people, or that there was other people who knew. I, in fact, heartily believe that there was other people who knew and other people who helped them. But the masterminds, the ones who started it and could have put a stop to it, that's Chad. That's Lori, and I hope they rot in jail forever. So I've gotten a lot of questions about why the police just now found the remains. The truth is they were at Chad Daybell's property back in January, but it was very cold, obviously, it's winter, and the ground was frozen and it was too hard to dig. Many people have speculated that Lori turned on Chad while she was in prison and gave police the location of the bodies. I don't think so. Lori is far too narcissistic and self-satisfied to implicate herself. She doesn't appear to be sorry for anything. She doesn't appear to feel remorseful for anything. So I don't really see the benefit in her turning on Chad because they were her kids. I don't really see how that could even save her at this point, considering that she's the mother of the children. And after they went missing, she lied and wouldn't tell anybody where they were. And then she was in Hawaii with Chad, getting married after they went missing, hanging out with him, coming back. They were inseparable. So it would be really tough for her to say, oh, Chad did everything and he knows everything, without certainly implicating herself criminally regardless. Now, Mark Victor is a lawyer who owns Attorneys for Freedom in Chandler, and he's not involved in this particular case. However, he did break down the severity of some of the potential charges that Chad and Lori might soon face.
The fact that she's not cooperative and wasn't cooperative, that might come into evidence. I think that there's a reasonable chance that comes in because the prosecutor will argue that this is consciousness of guilt. This is something that you might expect a reasonable parent who is not guilty of first-degree or second-degree murder to say, yes, I'm very concerned, let me tell you where I saw them last, these kinds of things.
And could the state file more serious charges against Daybell and Lori together as co-defendants?
It's more efficient and expedient for the justice system to put them together, and so prosecutors can do that.
Victor says the prosecution must prove Daybell and Vallow's involvement in the children's deaths to upgrade charges, even though JJ and Tylee's remains were found on Daybell's property.
The issue here is not who do you believe. The issue here is, did the state prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? That's going to be a tough hurdle, but it's a hurdle that prosecutors get over quite frequently.
Something that really stuck out to me as all of these articles were coming out in the days following the discovery of the remains was there was a lot of, neighbors coming forward and talking about Chad or talking about Lori. But what really interested me was a neighbor of Chad's who came forward and talked about some strange happenings over on the Daybell property before Tammy Daybell died mysteriously. Matthew Price told Salt Lake City's KNXV TV, quote, "We noticed they were having a few bonfires that were kind of out of the ordinary. They had big bonfires last fall, and they had 2 or 3 big bonfires this spring." What was striking about those bonfires is that Matthew Price noticed they seemed to be in the same areas where investigators later recovered the 2 sets of human remains. Matthew Price also mentioned that nothing seemed off about Chad besides one encounter in the fall right before Tammy died when she and Chad came over to buy pumpkins from him. Matthew Price said that Chad was acting strange and different. He wasn't talking a lot or making eye contact with anyone, and he normally would have. Just a week after that, Tammy Daybell was dead. So come with me down this path for a moment. Both JJ and Tylee went missing and were never seen again before Tammy Daybell died, and the neighbor saw massive bonfires on the Daybell property in the fall before Tammy died. And Rob Wood, the prosecutor, mentioned that one set of remains was found in a state that was particularly egregious. Could he be referring to the fact that the remains had been burnt? And if we go further down the path, I would wonder if the real reason Tammy was taken out of the picture was because she was alive when Chad and Lori got rid of Tylee and JJ. And these massive bonfires were happening in her backyard, possibly to burn the remains. Did she know what Chad and Lori were doing? Did she happen to walk in on something or see something that she shouldn't have, that she didn't agree with? Did she tell her husband she wasn't on board with whatever he was into and that she was going to go to the cops? Is that the real reason Tammy Daybell is no longer alive? Besides, of course, her sizable life insurance settlement. The day after the remains were found, Kay and Larry Woodcock went to the Daybell property. Larry stated there's only one reason why they were there, and that is to see where JJ was.
Well, I just want to give you my condolences. I am so terribly sorry. I'm so sorry.
Moments like this played out in Rexburg Wednesday as neighbors as well as members of the media gave condolences to the grandparents of JJ Vallow.
I watched the whole process yesterday, and it's heartbreaking, heart-wrenching what's happened to us.
And y'all don't deserve this.
Oh, neither do you.
Well, I'm just saying, this neighborhood.
I mean, really,
and
you've
the
lost
people
your
of Rexburg.
grandchildren. I can't imagine.
You know, it's not about us.
No, it isn't.
It's about them.
Community member Janice Summers, who has been following this case closely, captured this video of Kay and Larry Woodcock walking along the road near the Daybell property.
This has torn up so many people. It's destroyed people. It's torn up whole homes. And there's no need for this.
The same area where they believe their grandson JJ and his sister Tylee's remains were buried.
And I just want you to know I came here for one reason. That's to see where JJ is.
And so now, where are all the voices of all the people who have spent the last year trying to convince us that Lori was a good and loving mother who was simply saving the kids from evil family members who wanted to do them harm? Where's Melanie? Where's Ian? Where's Janice Cox? Where's Lori's sister Summer? I'll quickly remind you of some things that these people have been shoving down our throats these last few months. I have to see my family get slaughtered on the news every day. This mob mentality of calling for Lori to be hung in a public square basically is what it feels like. That was Lori's sister, Summer. I talk to him. He just takes the phone, and he knows who we are. That was Lori's mother, Janice Cox, talking about an alleged phone conversation she had with JJ on October 1st, even though the last time anyone else ever heard from him or saw him was September 23rd. I'm positive beyond any doubt that she hasn't harmed those kids. She's invested her whole life in those children, so we know there's another whole side to this. We don't know what it is, but we know her. Also, Janice Cox, Lori's mother, didn't know her as well as he thought, I guess, if at all. And remember Melanie and Ian from their interviews where they were bending over backwards and forwards, trying to convince us that this whole thing has just been blown out of proportion. People like us, people like you and me, people want to believe Lori's bad. So that is what they will believe, regardless of the truth, regardless of any evidence that shows she's a good person or a good mother. We just want to believe she's a bad mother and she killed her kids, so that's what we're going to believe. And according to Melanie, the truth is Lori wouldn't hurt her kids. She always had a plan, right? She was just trying to keep them safe from evil Kay and Larry Woodcock, who are these horrible people who are just bullying Lori for no reason. Remember Melanie yelling from rooftops for all that could hear, "There is no cult. Nothing's going on that's abnormal. We're just regular people trying to live our regular lives. The kids are safe. The kids are safe. The kids are safe." What does everyone have to say about it now? Now that it's very clear the kids are not safe, unless, like I said, Melanie's definition of safe is dead, which could possibly be the truth because she is insane. The following statement was released from attorneys Robert Jarvis and Garrett Smith. These are the attorneys that represent the Cox family. So Melanie, Ian, Janice, Summer, Janice's husband. And here's what this statement says. The Cox family, Janice and Barry, Summer, Melanie, and Ian, is deeply saddened by the recent findings in the investigation into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee. Their love for them knows no bounds. The family has maintained a strong hope and belief that they were alive and well. With that hope and belief apparently shattered, they struggle to find comfort and hope in this potential new reality. They miss JJ and Tylee very much. The family expresses their deep and abiding love for JJ and Tylee. The family will continue to closely watch the developing situation and will anxiously await the pending conclusion with heavy hearts. Let's dissect this a little bit just because I'm feeling petty. Their love for them knows no bounds? Well, that's not true at all, is it? No bounds means there is no boundary you won't push, no mountain you won't climb, no ocean you won't cross to make sure the person or people you love are safe and happy. But these people clearly did have a boundary which they would not cross. It's like that Meatloaf song, "I would do anything for love, but I won't do that." For Summer and Melanie and Janice, the thing they wouldn't do for love, their love that knew no bounds, was to get in a car, drive to the prison, and demand Lori to tell them where those kids were. They didn't even ask her because they were like, well, she's not going to tell us anyways, and everything's being recorded, and she's trying to keep them safe, so we're not going to make her, do something that would not keep them safe. That was the bound. That was it. It's pretty much the same amount of love that the person who writes the Hallmark cards that you give to your mom on her birthday and your husband on your anniversary. The Cox family has about that much love for JJ and Tylee, kind of like strangers, just knowing what love is, knowing that people do love each other, but not really feeling that towards those kids, because if they had felt that towards those kids, they wouldn't have protected Lori. They wouldn't have tried to convince everyone she was an amazing person who would never do this. They would have been demanding answers from her, and they would have been helping to find the kids instead of helping to cover it up, even if they didn't know that that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. They were shoving propaganda down our throats. They were trying to gaslight us. They were trying to make us question what we knew to be true. Let's continue on. The family maintained a strong hope and belief that the kids were still alive. Now, there's a difference between a strong hope and belief and outright saying on national television that you have no doubts they're alive and well, which is exactly what Lori's mother, Janice, did. And the part of the statement where they struggle to find comfort and hope in this new reality. I'm sorry, but they don't deserve an ounce of comfort and hope. Leave the comfort and hope to the families of the victims, the ones who actually made an effort to find JJ and Tylee, the ones who weren't crying about Lori being dragged all over the news, the ones who didn't defend the woman who ensured her own kids wouldn't live to see their college graduation or their first job interview or their first love. And this is truly a cautionary tale of what happens when people go to extremes with anything: religion, politics, love. Life does not exist in black and white. There are many shades of gray, and when you throw yourself wholeheartedly into any one thing, it becomes the only thing you have, and you would do anything and everything to protect it, because if it's gone, you would have nothing. My mom always told me, don't put your eggs in one basket. Don't give up your career when you get married, because who knows what could happen, you know? You could find yourself 10 years down the road. Maybe your husband's divorced you. Maybe you've divorced your husband. Maybe, he had a heart attack. Who knows? Anything could happen. And now you have nothing to fall back on because you gave up your career. Megan Phelps Roper was a former member of the Westboro Baptist Church, and she was actually also the granddaughter of the founder of the Westboro Baptist Church. She said, quote, "We believed it was a good or evil situation, that the WC was right and everybody else was wrong, so there was no questioning. I spent so much time reading the Bible, trying to see the world through this very particular framework, that to have truly considered it was wrong was inconceivable. Too much of anything, even a good thing, throws your entire worldview out of balance." And I truly think that this is what happened to Lori and Chad. Now, Chad, in my opinion, was a subpar kind of person who never really excelled at anything in his life, but he wanted that notoriety and respect that comes along with being the best at something, but he just didn't have the skill set to be the best at anything that existed in the world. So he created something to be the best at. He created this belief system where he made the rules, so he'd be the one who knew them the best. He'd be the expert on something. So if anybody wanted to join his group or liked what he was saying, they'd have to come to him to teach them. He would be the one to pass on this knowledge. And honestly, I don't even think it mattered to him if he had 20 or 200 people in his group, as long as he was the most important thing in the world to a group of people who built him up and made him feel like a god. In my opinion, this man is mentally ill and has lost all sense of reality. And when he met Lori, she was already on that path where she was going to break with reality, like at least 3 exits down. So all he had to do was like take her hand and kind of pull her the rest of the way there. But I also think that Lori is a bad person, an evil person in her heart. So you add to that the insanity that any extremism can cause in a person's brain. And this is what you have. Chad made up all this stuff about dark and light souls and zombies. Like, he completely made this up. But it was Lori's choice to believe it. It was Lori's choice to enact this kind of end of days punishment on her own children. Because if you look at Chad Daybell, his kids aren't dead. He's got 5 or 6 grown children that he had with Tammy. His kids are all alive. What are his kids? Are his kids all light souls? And if so, well, JJ was a light soul as well. So why is JJ dead? And if I'm Lori, I'm like, why do my kids have to die, but your kids are cool? Like, does this make any sense? But Lori didn't care. Lori didn't care to ask questions because Chad gave her a justification for what she really already wanted to do, which was to start fresh. She had a bad experience with Tylee's father, Joseph Ryan, and then Tylee was a reminder of that. She had a bad experience with Charles Vallow, JJ's adopted father. So JJ was a reminder of that. Lori wanted to start fresh without any baggage or reminders of her past, but she also wanted everybody to keep thinking she was this good person, right? So she couldn't technically give her kids away and tell Kay and Larry that they could just have JJ because they wanted him and let them win, and then let everybody talk about how, she wasn't a good mother and she couldn't stick to her responsibilities, because Lori still wants people to think she's a good person, right? Her entire reputation depends on people thinking she's a good person. So she's not going to just give her kids away, because that would make her look like a bad person. And you might say, well, killing your kids also makes you look like a bad person. True, but I don't think Lori ever thought anybody would find out. I thought that she thought she could lie her way out of it and people would just stop asking questions. So Lori already had this feeling like she wanted to get rid of her past baggage, and Chad gave her a religious justification to do so, or a spiritual justification to do so. Well, what happens now? Since Chad has gotten his own lawyer, I anticipate there will be a lot of finger pointing. Chad and Lori will probably point the finger at each other in some ways. They'll also both try to pass the buck to Alex Cox since he's dead and he can't refute whatever it is they say. What we cannot refute, however, is where the bodies of these two children were found, right in Chad Daybell's backyard. There is no doubt to me, at least to me, allegedly, that he knew they were there while he was telling reporters and everybody else that they were safe. There's no doubt to me that Lori knew they were there. All we need to know now is how they killed them. For me personally, it doesn't matter who did the actual act. It only matters that they were both responsible, complicit, and knew exactly what was happening, and that JJ and Tylee were no longer going to be alive. Either one of them could have spoken up and stopped this insanity at any point, and neither one of them did. They took the lives of these two beautiful children, and then they went to Hawaii and they danced on a beach. I have not seen a trace of shame or sadness or regret in either of them all of these months. I've seen no regret because no regret exists. And I truly think that these two people will go forward claiming to believe that what they did was right, that it needed to happen, and that they will not be apologizing for it until the end of time. Chad might apologize because he's manipulative enough where he knows what he has to say to get out of trouble or to get into less trouble, but Lori's just so dumb, so cocky, and so just full of pride. I don't think she'll ever apologize because she does not seem to me like the type of person who can admit they're wrong because they feel like it makes them look weak, or they feel like it takes away or detracts from what they've been saying or what they've been trying to say. So I feel like she would just go down this path, and that's the hill she will die on. Fingers crossed, right? So I don't want to hear words of sympathy and sadness from a single person who looked all of us in the face, who tried to convince us that something we knew was true was a lie, and that we were all just part of some mob mentality wave that prevented us from thinking logically. I don't want to hear Melanie's excuses or rationalizations. I don't want to see her face with its mask of pretend grief. I don't want to hear any more crazy batshit stories about zombies and earthquakes and the end days. I want Lori and Chad to go away for life, disappear from the population forever, and never hear from them again. Just like I never want to hear from Chris Watts again. And once Letitia Stout is hopefully behind bars forever, I never want to hear her name or see her face or hear her voice again. I think Melanie and Ian should also be charged with aiding and abetting. And I want Lori's mother to take a good hard look at herself and question what she did to raise two children that went so far off the path. And I want her also to be charged for lying about that call with JJ, because it's pretty clear now that's exactly what she did, unless she too has a thin veil and she's able to contact the spirits of the dead from the other side. Charles Vallow was a good man, a man that loved children who were not his by blood, and he loved them as if they were his by blood. A man who worked hard to provide for his family and was broken inside when he realized that family was falling apart. Tammy Daybell was a beautiful woman who was loved by her family and her community for her selfless love of others, who made a mark on so many lives, or think that her life could ever end at the hands of a man she loved and trusted completely, shared 5 children with. It's insane to even think. JJ and Tylee, normal kids who'd already faced so many hardships in their short time on Earth, who just wanted to be happy and have friends and feel safe. So many lives have been taken. So many other lives have been damaged. So many people who have to go forward knowing they will never see Charles, Tammy, JJ, and Tylee ever again. I mean, look at Colby. He doesn't have a father in his life. Then Joe Ryan comes into the picture and adopts him, but allegedly that wasn't a great relationship. Then Charles Vallow comes along, who actually cares about Colby and cares about Tylee and JJ. But then he's killed by Alex Cox, who is Colby's uncle. Then his brother and sister, JJ and Tylee, disappear. He can't get a hold of them. He's had to stress out and worry about where they are for the last year. Then Alex Cox dies, his uncle, maybe they weren't close or whatever, but still, you're a family member. Then your mom goes to prison, and now you find out that your brother and sister you've been worried about so much over, this past year, they're dead. They're not coming back. You'll never see them again, talk to them again, play with them again, tell them that you love them again. That's awful. So many lives have been destroyed by Chad and Lori. They built this house of cards, but it was built on sinking ground. It was built on lies and evil chaos. This whole time, they've been trying to convince themselves that they were the good guys, the ones who were chosen by God. If there are evil spirits roaming this earth, they occupy the bodies of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, and they have been allowed to do the devil's work in our world for far too long. So let's hope they never see the light of day again. I'll be keeping up with this case as it goes along. I'm sure it will go to court. Right now, everything's really being sealed up tight. The autopsies aren't being released. Everything's kind of just a real hush-hush because they do want to ensure that everyone gets a fair trial. But I will keep an eye on things as they go. If new information comes out, I'll make updates. I'm going to put all of these videos on this case in one playlist, so it's easier to find if you guys want to do that or check it out. I'll put it in the description box. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think about my theory that maybe Tammy saw something that she shouldn't have, and that's why her life was ended, on top of the money, obviously. But let me know about that. Let me know what you think about anything. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and also remember to have a fantastic day, because I love you. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.